Hello, welcome to this YouTube video. Today I want to show you how you can build a Docker container out of Dockerfiles. And the Dockerfile is just a text file full of instruction to build a container image. And I have prepared some Docker images, like a basic one, then I will show you a more advanced one. And in the end, I will build a multi-stage Dockerfile. And let's start with a just basic Dockerfile. And every Dockerfile starts with from. This is a keyword which specifies the base image. So we are using an nginx base image, and the tag is Alpine. So Alpine is a very slim Linux distribution, and yeah, that's the reason why I'm using it, just for testing purposes. It's nothing for production, just a basic small image. So actually there's one argument, or there's one instruction which can stand in front of from. This is arg, but we will see it in another Docker file. And we want to add some packages or something. Yeah, want to run some file permissions or something like this. And therefore we can use run, and actually this will be adding a new layer to the image. But if we run docker build, we see how many layers this Docker file will create. And APK is just the Alpine package manager. So we do like here APK add and specify the packages like bash and CA certificates. And after that, we can specify where we want to execute the following commands. So with workdir, it's like cd into a folder, and we go into user share and nginx HTML. So this is the folder where nginx is looking for by default for index HTML and other static content. And with copy we have the possibility to copy like local files into the container. And as you can see here, we have in the same folder like the Docker file. We have an index HTML, and this is a index HTML, and it's just basic hello world page, nothing special. And this will be copied into user share nginx HTML. Therefore, there's here only a dot. Then I will run some modification in this file. So we change the file permissions on index HTML chmod or change mod 644. And let's go into VI because it's more readable. And then we can use the expose keyword for documentation purposes. So this is actually not exposing the app on port 80. This is just for documentation that the app is running on port 80. So there will be no port on our host machine open on any device, on any interface. This is just for documentation. In the end, we have the command or the cmd instruction, and we are starting nginx. And this is like in another form. So you can see we have like this we have two types of how we can run any commands. And this what you can see here in this run instruction, this is the shell form. And under cmd we have like the exec form. And the exec form wouldn't be interpreted by any shell. So this is the main difference between them. And CMD can be overwritten. So this is actually not adding another layer, because this is during runtime, so it's not nothing. It has nothing to do with the build, and can specify it. If I want to build the image, I run docker build. With -t, I can give the image a name and actually tag it. Let's call it Nginx. Let's tag it basic. Then we have to specify the build context, and we are in the same folder. So I can just type in dot. Now you can see we have like 5 layers. The one is coming from the front keyword, and the other instruction are adding new layers to the image. So our image contains of 5 layers. With with Docker image ls, we can list our images. And if I want to run a container out of this container image, run docker run -d for detached mode, give it a name, Nginx. Let's call it Nginx basic. Then I can open a port on my local machine, but I don't want to open it on all my devices. So I can specify here my loopback device. I use port 80, and then I have to specify the container port, which is 80 as well. And in the end, we have to write the container image. It was Nginx basic. Let's check if it's running. Yes, it is. So right now I could call localhost, and we see that we getting in the same answer as we got here before. So this is the HTML page which I copied into the container image, and yes, it is basically running. Let's have a look in the browser. Localhost. Actually, I don't have to specify the port because it's by default 80, and we can see the HTML page. So now we are looking into the advanced Dockerfile. And we can see that here is the arg instruction. And I told you before that it's the only keyword or the only instruction which can stand in front of from or command post. And this is quite handy because we can use like a variable and are more flexible, and using this argument for determine which tag we can use. So by default, it is Alpine, and I can overwrite it if I build the image by docker build, and then we can use --build -arg, and we can overwrite this argument, which when we want to use a different tag as Alpine. So the next one is label. We can add with this keyword some metadata, which is quite handy because we can actually organize our Docker images by labeling them, and maybe we want to use another label, like for example, like env, like let's go with production or prod, and you have to use here double quotes. And here we can see we have arg and env. So arg again is like a variable or an environment variable, but only during build time. So this is one is only inside the image available, and env is if you start the container or inside the container, you have the possibility to inject some environment variables. So if the container runs, Nginx version would be available, and arg is only during the build time. If you want to persist some data, for example, some logs, we can use a volume instruction, and then we have locally stored our logs. Otherwise, if the container crashes, the data can be lost, and that's the reason we want to ensure that we have at least the logs. Stop signal is it's not needed actually, because inside the base image Nginx, we have already determined the stop signal secret, which is needed for some apps like Nginx or Postgres, and usually it is sig term by default, but Nginx and Postgres need secret, otherwise these containers cannot be gracefully shut down, and this can cause some problems, and for that reason you can specify a different stop signal as sigterm. Then we have the same instruction like we saw before, like we add some packages like bash and CA certificates, and actually here we have a new keyword, shell. So we can say that every other command after that will be executed by the bash. Then we have like the user keyword, so we can specify which user is running from that point on. But in the case of Nginx, it is not viable. It is possible, but then we have to change some config, and it is easier for testing purposes or for the demonstration purposes just to run it as root. So everything will be run here as root. And then we have the entry point, which will be inherited from the Nginx base image. So again, we don't have to do something here. So actually, entry point on CMD is the same as a base image. So I don't need to have the CMD instruction in my base image or in my image, because it's inherited from the base image. But if you want to have something different, or you, for example, you have your own config, you can read the config with this one, and then maybe I don't know where actually the config is written to, but maybe it's in etc, Nginx, and so on. So you can do this as well, but CMD can be overwritten by start time. So if you run a Docker container, you can override CMD. So it can be handy if you actually wanted to use a different config. And then we have health check, which doesn't actually add a new layer to the image like CMD, because these like entry point, CMD, and health check, they are like during container runtime. And here we can specify a command which checks the container. So we can actually say what is going to be checked. So we want to check the Nginx page, the Nginx server. And if it fails, just exit it. Exit it if the failure code failure code is 0, is 1. 0 would be running without errors. And check every 30 seconds. Let's go with a shorter interval. So timeout is actually when to stop or when to give up. And there's another flag, this retry, and we can specify how many retries this health check or Docker should done before to consider this container failure. Let's go with that. Docker build. And then we want to tag it. Nginx. Do it advanced. Now we have to specify the Dockerfile because it is not called Dockerfile anymore. It is Dockerfile.advanced. In the build context, we have to specify as well. So we are in the same folder. Nothing changed. There, I wanted to show you as well how to use build arc. So here you can see -- build arc. So you go back to the command. Would just type in here like something build arc, and then I think it's like so it's followed by the arc, and then I think it was something like Nginx version equals to maybe, I don't know which version is there, 1.01 or something else. So this is actually a possibility to do. Okay, we built our Docker image. Let's see, image ls. Let's start a container out of it. Run, go the old command, Nginx advanced. So let's see, because we have and it's already healthy. So we see the health check is already successful. And you can just call localhost because I opened the port on my machine. And we can see the hello world page as expected. Let's remove this container. Docker stop. Docker rm. And now let's check the multi-stage build by multi. So we have two stages. We have one builder stage, which is going from this keyword from to the another from keyword. And this is actually just building a simple React app. So everything it does, or what is done here, is just install, just get Git repository with some React files, then install some dependencies, and then just build the static content. And the add keyword is quite handy because you can add Git repositories. In this case, it is public available, so there's no authentication needed. And copy everything which is inside this Git repository into this workdir, and then just run npm run build. So in the second stage, we specify the base image, and the argument or the arc is actually put on the top because it has to be in front of every from statement. So it's actually used in this from statement, but we have to put it on top. Then again, we see some label, the stop signal as well. And what is new is this copy statement. So in the copy statement before, we just copied local index HTML. But in this case, we are copying from the builder stage, everything what is inside app/build. Copy this into user share Nginx HTML. Then again, we want to have a volume for persist our Nginx logs, and the other stuff is actually not new. Let's build this one, Docker build. Let's tag it actually React, maybe dev. Then we have to specify the Dockerfile and the build context. Let's start a container out of this container image. Docker run, -d for detach mode. We name it React. We open it on our loopback device, port 80, and map it to the container port 80. Then the image, which was React dev. Now we can see the health check is starting. And actually, I think after 15 seconds, should change to healthy. After 30 seconds. Yeah. I can see, because we had specified the interval 30 seconds. Okay. Let's do a quick call local host. And we can see index HTML. But let's see it in the browser, because React is injecting everything with JavaScript. So we cannot see here something. So let's open the browser. First. Now we can see some content. And that's actually everything I wanted to show you. Thanks for watching, and I hope you found something new.